Catus Maximus here once again. This time we are talking about the 1/2-inch drive Lisle hand impact drivers. Now there's a ton of videos on YouTube about using and general properties of hand impact drivers. I probably went through 20 or 30 of them, didn't watch the whole things, but tried to get the gist of it. And what I noticed about all of them is they don't really mention that they're not all hand impact drivers are created equal. And actually a vast majority of them I find are either useless or quite difficult to use. And when I discovered these Lisles, they work differently than other hand impact drivers, and quite frankly, they're amazing. They actually do all the amazing things that normal hand impact drivers like this should do. I did buy both of these used. They do show up. Lisle's been making these things for decades, and they still make them to this day. Let's take a close look at this one here. I did only pay $2 at a Habitat for Humanity on this one, so very good find. And they're made pretty well. These things are extremely heavy, good quality knurling, nice machining, and a really thick, heavy, solid billet. And the Lisles are particularly unique. You'll always know the Lisles, even if you can't see the stamping or if it's light, by this screw and then this unique head design here. Now we have another one here. This is a 3/8. This came from CarQuest, which is, it sells high quality tools. They're kind of like Napa in that regard, where they sell higher quality stuff. But this impact driver is how most hand impact drivers operate that people have. And I'll show you the difference here in just a second. I did want to point out that this older Lisle I pounded on quite a bit, and they actually hold up pretty well. They use a pretty good quality steel and heat treatment. Inevitably, when you a tool that you strike with a hammer is going to have a little bit of mushrooming, but this is held up satisfyingly well. I've used this quite a bit. So impact drivers, these hand ones, are real common, removing brake rotor screws and Phillips head screws, because normal impact wrenches don't provide enough force forward into a fastener. So like a real stuck Phillips head screw on a brake rotor or a transmission case on a motorcycle, people use these kind of hand impact drivers because you're hitting on the back of it and you're providing a lot of forward force to get that bit to stay into the head of the fastener. Now let's take a look at what most of them, how most operate. Some you have to push in the reverse direction, and on these Lisles you do. This one you don't. You just go back and forth. But even the ones that you do have to push in, you push them in reverse direction, and say I want this fastener to come unscrewed. I'd turn this to the left like I'm unscrewing it, and I have to make sure to keep a lot of tension. I have to push it into the fastener, hold it with my hand, and make sure that I'm putting tension on it while I hit it. If I back off a little bit and this becomes unscrewed, this is what happens. It goes in and out and doesn't actually turn at all. And a lot of them are exactly like that, or they'll just turn a little bit. Now if this, I put tension on it, you can see it doesn't turn very much, just a few degrees. Now let's get into the Lisles and why they are so amazing, and that's just simply the functional property. These are like others where you have to push them in to reverse them. But the difference is that this anvil doesn't have any normal play. It doesn't twist around when it's in its out position. The other thing is when you push this in, there's quite a bit of rotation. Let's see if we can't, you can look at it relative to the screw. You can see that that moves at least twice as far. And then there's no free play. And that's what has made these Lisles so much better, is that you're able just to put it in the fastener, and the only thing you have to worry about is holding it in there. You don't have to worry about tensioning it one way or tensioning it the other, or making sure that you have it far enough over so it'll actually impact. All you have to do is put it in the fastener, and because it's such a tight fit in there, and it has such a high degree of rotation, that you just put it on and hit it like you would expect to use a hand impact driver. And then these have worked just fantastically, far superior to a version like this. So I really, really have to recommend these because of just how well they work. Really, really nice. Another aspect is you can even put a wrench on that flat if you needed to. Now, as far as hammers, a lot of people will hit these with, say, a framing hammer, a hammer, carpenter's hammer. impact drivers do work better when they're hit with a lot of mass. So like if you were to use a 3-pound hammer, you would get a lot more, you have so much more mass that when you hit the back of it, it really forces it over. It forces it in harder and over, and there's more energy goes into what you're turning rather than being reflected back. Because a lighter hammer, you have to swing a lot faster and harder. It's a little more dangerous and just isn't as effective as a big heavy hammer that you only have to hit this with not a lot of force because you have so much mass. So that'd be the second recommendation, is to use a high mass hammer or block of metal when you're striking these. That's just about it for this review. I just wanted to really point that out and get that out there, that there is not all hand impact drivers are created equal, and some really operate much more effectively than others. And reversing this one is like super easy. You can just pop it back and forth. This little screw has a little stamp to keep it from falling out. And in either direction, these have a huge amount of rotation as well as being tight. So you don't have to really make sure that you're totally tensioning the tool. You can just put it in like normal and hit it, just like you'd expect it. Anyway, that was my review of the Lisle hand impact drivers. And I really appreciate everybody watching. And please subscribe. Catus Maximus out.